I thought that I ought to come and sum up our position, especially on two problems, the question of the ceasefire and the problem of the Yaring talks at their present stage. Now, on the ceasefire, Israel's position is that the resolutions adopted in June 1967 by the Security Council have binding and continuing force, that no party has a right for their unilateral cancellation or fixing deadlines for them, and accordingly we have proceeded on the basis of a ceasefire conditioned only by reciprocity. That is our position, and we thought it worth stating this morning, not because we recognize the March the 7th date, but because significance has been given to that date by others. Well, I've noticed the statement made by the President of the United Arab Republic. It was, of course, not an unexpected statement, and I think the Israeli position and the Egyptian position as they stand illustrate what the future will be. Our attitude to the ceasefire is anchored in a very different doctrinal and juridical basis. But for us, the operative factor is whether or not fire is opened upon us or whether fire is threatened. So that the Israeli statement of this morning continues to cover the situation, even after President Sadat's statement on the ceasefire. I want to say something in introduction of your questioning period about the present stage in the Yaring mission. First of all, I'd like to remind you of a certain historic development. It's now about 9 months, the 4th of August 1970, since Israel decided, in accepting the United States initiative, to embark upon those discussions according to the decision that the Israeli cabinet adopted on that day, that we would make. I'd like to point out that this is a reasoned reaction both to Ambassador Yaring's aide memoire of the 8th of February and also to the Egyptian aide memoire, which was submitted to us on the 17th of February. As you can see from the very first paragraph, it is not true to say that Israel did not react at all to what was communicated to it by Ambassador Yaring on February the 8th. The February the 8th discussion was taken up entirely with a discussion of Ambassador Yaring's aide memoire, which was submitted on that date. Now, what have we done in this document? Faced with the positions and the demands for preconditions formulated by the United Arab Republic, Israel formulated its basic positions, did not ask the UAR to accept them as a precondition. We've said these are Israel's positions, and we are now ready to enter into meaningful negotiations on all subjects relevant to a peace agreement between the two countries. And having laid down what we thought should be the correct formulation of the principles of the peace agreement, and since some of these principles obviously have to be spelled out and are not self-executing, we added in the operative paragraph that now that both parties have presented their basic positions, they should now pursue their negotiations in a detailed and concrete manner without prior conditions, so as to cover all the points listed in their respective documents with a view to concluding a peace agreement. Now, that is not, of course, a new position. This is and has been our position. It is our position today. But the distinction between this and the Egyptian document is important. The UAR said that the acceptance of the Egyptian position on withdrawal is inexorable. It is a condition. Without it, there cannot be negotiation. Israel said, we are stating our position. We're not asking the UAR to accept any of our positions, including our territorial position, in advance of the negotiation. The point is, therefore, that the boundary to which Israel forces would withdraw must be the subject of negotiation and agreement, as is the case with other problems intimately connected with it. That the omission of the word all the territories was deliberate. It was, in fact, as I recall, on one or other of the documents presented to it. Our lives, with Ambassador Yaring soon, the experience of the past few weeks, and ask him and ourselves whether we cannot that the situation created by the statements today mean that there will be a ceasefire. Although if anybody says that there's been a more positive response by President Sadat to the ceasefire than by Israel, then I think the time will have come for all sanity to be renounced. We accept the ceasefire positively, based on the Security Council resolution, as a continuing commitment. The UAR at best has said that it doesn't acknowledge the ceasefire, it will not recognize it by prolonging it, but it might do the kindness of not shooting. I suggest that these two approaches to the ceasefire ought to be examined. But as I've said, the crux of the matter on the ceasefire is whether fire will be opened or not. That is the first question. If the total result of what has been published today means that there will be abstention from fire in the future, then the question arises, how should the next step be taken in the Yaring report? And here we have no doubt on what ought to be done. We believe that there should be a response to our expressed readiness for detailed and concrete negotiations on all the matters, and that now means on all the matters mentioned in the Secretary-General's report, our own document, Dr. Yaring's document, the UAR document. That leaves open the discussion on any and all the problems, including the problem of withdrawal to secure recognized and agreed boundaries. So I express the hope that a similar readiness will be expressed on the UAR side, so that a peacemaking effort can go forward without delay. But there is nothing in the Israel position which prevents a concrete, detailed discussion on any of the matters being taken up immediately. To have a national, the document, and especially what I have said today, is an Israeli reaction to all the events of the last few days, namely the speech by the President of the UAR, the report by Upitn, the problems arising from the ceasefire, and perhaps I should add the discussions of the 4 permanent members of the Security Council, who, through certain deadlocks within their midst, have not intervened in the present situation. Well, we think that this non-intervention, whatever the causes of it, is salutary. We think the parties must be given elbow room and not have multitudes jogging their elbows and breathing down their necks at every single stage. As I've said, these are the most extraordinary conditions in which an attempt to reach a peace agreement has ever been made.
In view of the fact that President Sadat said tonight, not only that he was not renewing the ceasefire, but he was also not renewing the understanding of the last month that there should be no shooting. In other words, he left the impression that shooting might start at any moment. How do you think that might affect this peacemaking process?
Well, I've said that we really don't think he's in a position to appear as the author of a formal... well, yes, but I said it would be preferable if he were to accept a ceasefire in the proper way, namely to honor the agreement that was reached with us in June 1967, and to stop all this business of brandishing revolvers, however contingent. I can't possibly praise a statement. I cannot possibly praise a statement which contains any brandishing of guns, either as military threats or as political pressures. But I do agree that for every position there is a possibly worse position standing behind it. But this shouldn't blind